Welcome back, everybody. Here we are for another chess video, and it's got a few different games in here, but this one's more of like an introductory chess video as far as the next, well, I guess, quote-unquote, series is concerned with the chess. I've said on numerous occasions during some of these last videos that one of the places I play on is a correspondence chess site, where people can make moves over the course of days or weeks or whatever have you, depending on the time that you set. Which is really nice if you don't get that long to play, or you got 10 minutes at work and you want to just log in and see if there's a move or whatever it is. It gives you a chance to play without really having to sit down and focus all the time, and give you more time to think about it. So it's got a lot of positives. There's also a few negatives with this particular site. There's a setting that when somebody creates a game to play with other people, they can set a maximum number of players to join the game. Now, obviously, you can't have 3 people playing one game of chess, so I took it to mean that, if somebody had 10 players in his chess game, that meant he would play a game against all 10 of these people. Turns out I was wrong. If that says that and 10 people join, that means all 10 people play all other 9 people. There's also a setting that you can set beforehand, and it's posted on there, a series of opening moves where the game starts with those moves already being played. So I, unbeknownst to me, joined a 10-player round-robin thingamabob where the first 5 moves were already set in stone for me, and I had no idea. So I was thinking, I'll play this guy, no big deal, click join game. And then the next day I load up the website and there's 20 games on here, and all of them are 5 moves into the game, and I'm like, what the hell happened? So that really made me mad. And we're going to have 3 games during this episode, but none of them really last very long. And I wanted to bring that up, as this story up, just as kind of a prerequisite that the next handful of games are going to feature the same set of opening moves. Sometimes I'm white, well, half the times I'm white, half the times I'm black, and then there's a handful of different ways you get to play it out. So on one hand, it's really cool. We'll get to see a handful of different lines and different methodologies, and hopefully by the end of it, we can all actually be better off at this particular line of game. And it's a fairly common line of game. One of the previous videos, like 2 or 3 videos ago, I think actually was one of these games in the series. It started off very similar, and I think I just didn't realize it until now, until a few minutes ago when I was researching these before narrating them. So I think technically we're already 1 game into the series, and I messed that up, but whatever. We're officially just going to start it today. And the 3 in this video are 3 that just didn't take very long, and we'll get to that as far as why. So as far as what this specific set of moves is, he forced it to, well, I guess I should say 4 moves. Very standard opening over here. And instead of Roy Lopez, it leads to what maybe appears to be an Italian game. And this is what was forced into the players. The first 4 moves, as you can see up here. Hold on. Just kidding. It had that move in there as well. Yes, there we go. Okay, I cut it out too short. So very, very standard stuff. We see this opening quite a lot, or this sort of position quite a lot. Sometimes they go there, no big deal. And then when the knight comes out here to block off the queen's aim of this square, it's a very common thing for somebody to try and go after this pawn. It's called the fried liver. We've addressed it in a few videos recently as well, and it's a common tactic that beginner chess players use because it's very threatening, having a horse attack the 2 major pieces and is defended, so you can't quite get into it. And once this is set up in this position, by blocking off the square, not pushing a pawn to defender, or whatever it may be, it becomes very challenging to prevent this from happening. Pretty much you're left with throwing your pawn out here and then playing some really sharp stuff once this square has been blocked. Bounce your horse around trying to take this guy, and eventually chase away this knight, and it's all very, very common and no big deal. But because I was forced into so many games of this, because you play all of the people as both white and black, so there's just, the games are everywhere, it was a mess. I really just kind of bunkered down, and before I even made any moves, I'm like, I'm just going to research a whole bunch of this crap. So I looked at from both white and black different ways and different variations, and this and that and blah 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 blah. to kind of get a better idea before I just jumped into a whole bunch of these games with it. And at the end, I know I've said this again in some past videos, at the end of the day, it's honestly not that good for white. In super high level play, which is beyond what I can do, if somebody wants as white to jump into this position and you're playing as black, let them. That's what I have learned, to let them. Because of the additional time, we've already lost one move or one turn of time here to move the horse a second time, and then they're going to lose another one here, and then in order to get any sort of benefit, there's going to be, a third essentially move worth of time. Whereas the counterpart player is going to have 3 turns to do whatever he wants to get all sorts of kind of set up, and that can just give you some overwhelming position and let you get off into some attacks where the other guy just doesn't have pieces for it. So it's one of those, beginners will pull it off, it'll work on beginners, experts will let you pull it off because it won't work on them, and in reality it's generally just not the safest or it's kind of best route to go, but still very, very common. It's something that you'll see a lot in low-level chess play, so everybody should be aware of it, and that's why I'm really hoping that this will be well for a series. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully it all goes well. So these are just three different games that kind of, obviously they all start the same way, just to kind of get a taste as far as how things can look. So as an example, this is where the game kind of sets us off at. Oops, sorry, I skipped one move. And so the games, as white left me off in this position, I get my choice as far as what to do. And there's 2 options. You can take it with the bishop, you can take it with the horse. So I figured if I'm going to have all these games, half the time as white, I'll take it with the horse, with the bishop, and half the time I'll take it with the knight, and I'll just see how they go. Because obviously then there's different ways to respond to each. If you take it with the bishop, the king has 2 squares, and how does that change things? In one of them, he blocks off the queen, and one of them he blocks off the rook, and then obviously you would then have to spend time retreating the bishop, but then which square do you retreat the bishop to? So there's lots of different variations, even just within the very simple moves. And then as black, I tried to respond to them in a fair or an equal amount of different ways as well, to kind of get to play all of the different lines, or at least as much as I could, was the goal and the thought behind. Once I got in this situation I did not want to be in, I had to play my way out of it, really, unless I just forfeited all the games, which I by no means wanted to. It was all I could do was just, I'll just play them, and I'll just try and win them as best I can. So as I said, sometimes I'll take with the bishop and sometimes I'll take with the other one. There's a couple different squares the king can go, a couple different squares the bishop can run to, and then there's a handful. From then on, it gets open. Black can do lots of different things. He can pop down a horse, he can pull this out and start contending for the center, plus it angles out his bishop as well. He can go after the horse, he can do all sorts of different stuff. He can go after the horse by moving his, getting the discovered attack on it, though it's not necessarily as great. It's whatever. All sorts of different moves. And then in this particular game, like I said, none of these games really lasted very long. As we can see, he chose to use the pawn to, 1, open up his bishop, 2, challenge for the center here since he's got a couple pieces defending it, and all sorts of stuff in that regard. So I opted to take it since, I guess technically, I'm up a pawn, and I don't want to let him get control of the space, because if I'm wasting time going after tiny improvements, taking a pawn and pushing his king back there, I don't want to give him the space. So if I can neutralize that space, then these trades will benefit me. So I kind of remove that over there, and then this is his chance, what he thinks will be able to take my horse by blocking it off, and it's currently defended, all sorts of things, but I'll take this opportunity just to put him in check for now, force him to do something else, and then maybe, let's say he runs here, maybe then I'd be able to take the bishop, put him in check again, preventing him from going after my horse, and of course my queen is also then defending the bishop square as well. So it's really just kind of delaying his attack for a turn, giving me a little bit more control over a little bit more space before I kind of progress through things. It's also defending this square if he wants to do a similar kind of concept to me in the near future. Apparently black is preferred here. The computer just decided. So he blocks it off with the queen, and well, I'm up technically, because of the pawn. I guess I could trade here, but I opted that I think taking the horse is a little bit better. Because the queen is pinned, he can't go after this, and I just got a piece that's no longer being defended. It was free. And if he were to go after the queen, then that's fine. I can just move my horse down, and no harm, no foul. I came out a piece ahead, which is exactly what happens. He moves into a more aggressive position. No big deal. I think he's trying to eye this square, but that's fine. Considering I'm up in material, I'll just take that trade at this point, and then I just have to castle into security. So now he's got no attacks. He does have a little bit more control in the center than I do. Both of our bishops are now kind of stuck babysitting a pawn, but I'll be able to kind of make some quick work of that by just standard development of my pieces, free stuff out. You know, he's kind of pushing his stuff out, making a nice strong pivot for both of his bishops that they will be there and be annoying for the vast majority of the game. And I just need to bounce around my knights a little bit until eventually I can start pinning or attacking some of these guys. And at this point, he no longer made another move. He didn't concede, and obviously the game's far from over. Move-wise, I should say. I'm a long way away from checkmate, but he no longer made a move. For whatever reason, he just didn't play. His clock ran out, no big deal. It's just sort of a taste. I wanted to show a couple different of these games as the way they start, so we can just sort of see different ways that they may or may not be able to progress, and how that favors whomever it was. So right until prior to him moving this piece over, it's still favoring him. You know, even though I took the extra pawn at the start and messed his king up, he's, according to the computer, got the extra advantage despite being down in material, because he has 3 pieces out here. He's got an extra piece that's got a lane. Well, really, he has 2 pieces with an extra lane, and I've got all of these guys not doing a thing. No space really to claim to my own, and it's not looking too good until he makes a little blunder and I get a free piece out of it. So that's that game. Then this is another one where I wanted to show, and again we're forced to this starting point, and this time I wanted to try and take with the horse, because I'm going to try and split them up, just to sort of see how they go. And then there's a couple different ways that it can be responded to. Generally, you're going to move the queen, as well, I guess I shouldn't say all the time. Sometimes you'll see some other moves. I guess we'll get to those when they get there. But generally people think, well, the queen is more valuable than these two, so the queen moves, and just take the rook before you don't really get a chance to. You know, maybe the rook moves out, and then you end up getting nothing for all this time in position. So you take the rook, and hopefully you can save your horse at some point. Maybe not. If not, then you're still up the major to minor exchange at the very least. So, but then he immediately proceeds to go on the offensive. And as we've learned in recent videos, it's generally poison to take this bishop, but I figured this time I'm gonna just experiment a little bit, because I know it's poison. Maybe I'll put myself in better positions about it. Not quite sure. At least I am up this rook. My queen is freed, and I'm just gonna try and pay at least a little bit of attention. Plus, in a lot of those other cases, it was something where I've got a horse or a piece kind of stranded out in this area, so by them opening that up, they're able to take. In this case, my horse is already gone. He's already made his capture, so if he comes down here and puts me in check, then, well, I've already made my capture. You're not recapturing and gaining material back, so then I've got your bishop and the rook, so I wasn't quite as afraid of it for that reason as well. But he did make a great play, which I don't think I kind of saw this in advance. Maybe I did, or maybe I just didn't care. I'm not 100% sure, because it was so long ago. Or maybe I figured that if he's going to work his way down here into getting the bishop, that's why I wanted to take this bishop anyway, so it still kind of works out into a trade of sorts. So he made a nice combination, but I've still got his rook. Obviously he's got the position for now. I can't quite castle yet, but I will be able to solidify this, save the pawn from the horse, open up this bishop. You know, my horse is just one move away from being relevant, and I may or may not, well, I can't castle on this side at all, but at least I'll get some benefit of that thing being open. I just have to figure out how to play with my queen's rook at this point, which, we'll see. I mean, worst case scenario, I can just kind of move this guy over slowly, but or just, 2 moves later, suddenly he's free. We'll see. But unfortunately, at this point, the game didn't really continue on too much before he, as well, didn't concede, just entirely quit playing. It's an interesting thought. He wants to go after this horse to reclaim that extra lost material. I'll still be technically up in material at that point. So there's a couple thought processes that I had. One, I could move my horse down, force him to mess up his position, and have some really ugly pawns to take it back, because he's going to get this horse. That's not a question. So it was, do I mess up his position and make it look ugly for him taking it, or do I ignore it and just let him take it and then try and recoup some of that time that I lost by dancing over to get it in the first place? And I decided to recoup some of that time by dancing around in the first place, because if he does happen to take it, then his queen is even that much further away from being relevant, so it kind of puts him back out of it as well. He would have moved his queen, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in 10 moves, as we see over here, if he were to recoup that material. So my loss of time would be gone at that point. So I figured I'm probably better off just condemning it. And if I can just attack pieces and trade equally from there, I think I'll be alright. But that was the last move of the game. He, just like the previous opponent, just didn't show up to make the rest of the moves. And then in this one, it's also pretty quick, but this time we'll see me on the black side. Just one of the ways that I want, and I think the way I'm probably going to start defending against this in the future from now on. Maybe a little bit differently, sometimes depending on how they move, but so like I said, when it's set where the first 5 moves or 4 moves of this game, of these games, were set going into it, that means when I clicked, and load up the website and looked at my games and I saw freaking 20 games up there 5 moves in, when I clicked on this game, this is how it showed up for me. So I load up a chess game as black, and this is the board it gives me, and it says go. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I would never do this. Like, why? No, this is stupid. This is and so that's why I was so pissed about it. I'm like, I would never allow myself to get put in this sort of position where I'm gonna be blah blah blah. And so that's what made me decide that I needed to just look up, how is it that people stop this, and how do you recover from it if you let it happen? And surely you can't just have the game be a loss, otherwise you'd see it more often. You'd see people going out of their way to make sure it doesn't happen. There'd be something along with it, because this is not a board where you generally want to sit down and play at. I was like, oh, well, that's dumb. So I decided that I'll kind of counteract the play a little bit, and this, I don't know if this game came first or the other fried liver game we saw earlier came first, but one of these games was where I realized that this bishop move that I've mentioned so many times, I was able to notice it after doing some research and figuring out the concept as far as how does it work and why does it work. So that's what I utilize here. I don't care that he's after my 2 major pieces. I'm just going to let them kind of sit there and go after him, put him in some check. If he wants to, move out of the way instead of taking it, then obviously sure, I'll move the queen, let him take the rook, and then I'll probably do something over here where I'm saving my bishop and attacking his, or maybe just pull my bishop away somewhere else, and then go after the knight a little bit slower, perhaps. Maybe throw the pawn out there, and then just kind of castle into it and force his knight to move after that. Not quite sure. But so far, everyone has been taking these poisoned bishops, including me, in that very quick, not finished example of the last game. It's a very tempting and common thing to do. You say, hey, free bishop, why not? But again, this is where we just continue capturing a minor material, but really just keeping the pressure of check up, and now freeing the queen open for its available spots. And as you can see here, the game considers this to be an even board. Exactly a tie, whatever, that's fine. And then he moves there, which is apparently the worst possible place that king could move. On one hand, you think, alright, fine, it's going back to its natural home square. And even in the second game that we just looked at, after I took the bishop, pretty sure I just went back to the natural home square. But there's differences with this one. Granted, without me having both boards up at the same time, I don't remember exactly what they are, but clearly there must be some sort of difference. Otherwise, that wouldn't be you just lost the game because of this move type of bad. But whatever. So I still need to save my queen at this point because the horse is still here. You know, we've ignored it for a couple of turns, but there still is an offensive threat attacking me. So I decide I'm going to go put him in check, and what's he really going to do if I block him into check? He could move his king, and he could move his pawn. Okay, well, if he moves his pawn, I'd be able to just take that too with attack on the rook, because he's not going to be able to take it. Why? Well, this is exactly what we're going to see for a couple of different reasons. One, it frees this up and allows me some extra play in that regard, which is one reason why you don't want to run there to one of those two squares instead. But because the differences were in that one of the previous games, the king was off. It may have been in one of these two squares perhaps, and I wasn't able to take the rook because the queen was still defending it, so I opted to go way over here somewhere and put the guy in check and bounce around, and then we played some chess from there. I castled into here and pinned the king and all sorts of fun stuff. But in this case, because he retreated all the way to the back row, the rook is now free. So yeah, I guess in a way I have sacrificed a bishop, and now I've sacrificed a horse. But I've got 3 pawns to show for it. Now I've earned a rook, and he's still in check. And so we're just going to start really compiling the damage from here. I guess in theory he could move if he wanted. I don't necessarily know how those will all play out, but he proceeds to try and block it instead, abandoning this horse. Which there's a couple ways obviously I could respond with that. I could just straight take it if I really wanted and immediately get all the material back and then just try and play a draw from there. Or I could go after the horse, forcing it to retreat somewhere, giving myself checkmate in 1 with the queen. He decides to stall me in that regard just a little bit. He figures the horse is going to die either way. May as well throw a check, I suppose. I guess it makes a little bit of sense. It messes up my pawns a little bit, and he had to spend the turn one way or the other, so I suppose there's a little bit of logic to that. And then he tries to defend the bishop so that I don't have the immediate 1-turn play, but I'm just going to straight up attack it away with the horse, and you know, I'm also attacking this square now, just like he did with me, and there's not too much he can try and do. You can try and trade queens, but I'm going to go for this check now that it's open. It's no longer defended by the queen on her home square. And he's just in all kinds of trouble. If he goes after the horse, well, that's fine. I've got multiple pieces targeting this bishop that I can get with check, and if he takes it back, I can just take it with the other one. You know, if he were to go here, you know, he's in check. Take the horse, fine, I take the queen. If you take the rook, fine, I take the queen. So he can't just go after it there. And because he's in check, he can't just take my free queen at this point either, so he's got to have some way of responding to it, which all he's really able to do is move. So, and at this point, I could potentially take the bishop as well, and even if we just trade everything all out, I'm going to end up taking this rook, and then it'll be 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3 to his 2 pieces, and he's down a couple of pawns, so there's pretty much no way that this game can really get lost at this point, and I just start having fun instead. I proceed to kind of bounce around the field all over the place, putting him in checks, defending my pieces, just kind of running around left and right, making sure that he can't do anything, throw away some pawns, really just trying to get checkmate by taking some of this space up here. And eventually I'm able to figure out a way where I work my way down and around, utilizing the pieces that I have available to me into a checkmate. And so that's kind of just the introduction to this next series. There's a handful, I want to say like 6 games that I think are worth posting. I don't know the exact number. There's at least a few, and they'll kind of start with this exact same fried liver opening. Obviously we just saw 3 games that weren't really worth any time, and there's a few others that are as well. I don't want to upload too many videos of stuff that's just a big waste of time. So I figured one video is sort of like an introduction to it, just to get a little exposure and kind of explain why. Since one of my big things recently has been using different openings and trying to have things look more unique each video as opposed to always the same. Obviously this will take away from that for quite some time until we can finish these chess games and get back to your standard scheduled programming of me doing more variety of stuff. So anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video and enjoyed hearing the explanations, and hopefully you're looking forward to learning more about the fried liver as well. It'll kind of be fried liver 101 sort of, without the direct training or analysis, but seeing it in game action and being able to walk through the moves on your own with real play. So anyway guys, hopefully I will see you again in the very near future. Thank you all for watching. Take it easy. Catch you later everybody. Peace.